Welcome and welcome, parents. Thank you for joining us. You know, all parents want the same thing for their child. They want them to become a significant contributor to society someday. And one of the most important aspects of that process, of course, is learning to read. So it's to have so many techniques and ways and strategies to help our child learn to read. So we go to the bookstore and we buy these books for our children and we think that they're going to love them and read them, but it doesn't always happen that way. They don't always take to reading readily. And for some reasons, for many reasons, they're not turned on.
Nuggets for parents.
Welcome back to join our second video in the series of 3 interviews with our expert teacher, Mrs. Pat. Today we share about how to read with your child and how to make reading with your child more interesting. And our do and don't tips.
Thanks for the last sessions with our expert teacher who has been teaching for 50 years in Canada and Hong Kong, and our book author, Mrs. Pat Kozyra. Her books is Tips and Tidbits for Parents and Teachers. Hi, Miss Pat. Good to have you today to talk with our parents group.
Hello and welcome, parents. Thank you for joining us. Pleasure to be here. And we're going to start the session with 7 key points today that will help us help our children learn to read and want to read and read better. So besides just reading to our child or buying books, here are some of the other things that we can do. So let's look at our list of 7, shall we?
Yes, please.
The first one we have is to be a good reading role model. If your children see you reading, they will know that it's a normal thing, it's a pleasant thing, and they will want to do it too. Next one, set regular reading times each day. Let it become a habit. It's the best habit. Best addiction we can have is the addiction to read. And when your children see that you're sitting down after dinner with the evening paper, they'll want to sit with a book and do it too. Next, make a variety of reading materials available. So many things that we can read. Arrange a habitual library time. Take your child to the local library. Get your child his or her own library card. That's important. And it makes your child feel good too that he belongs to the library and has his own card. You can subscribe to a family magazine or several children's magazines, and they get excited when they come in the mail to your door. Consider your child's age, of course, the developmental level, and their interests when you select a book to read. It's important to read a book that the child wants to hear and is a good book for them at their level. Okay.
So for the last point, you mentioned that we need to consider child's age since parents are reading to them. Shall we challenge them to a higher level, or we need to stick with the same level?
Well, if you're reading to your child, you can probably read a book that's a much higher level than the child is functioning at, because the child is only listening. So they get it. They can understand a lot. So here are a few things that we note when we're reading to the child. So here are some tips. We read a variety of books, including poetry. They love to hear poetry. They love to hear the rhyme. Vary the reading experience with silent reading and oral reading. Oral reading is reading out loud. Have a brother or sister read to them. Teach left to right progression of reading, and at first you can use your finger to go across the page from left to right, visually showing them that motion. But you want to get rid of that after a while. And then we have what we call the 3 R's: rhyme, rhythm, and repetition. So of course, that's why nursery rhymes are so important. And that's why the kindergartens and the nursery schools sing the nursery rhymes, read the nursery rhymes, act out the nursery rhymes. And rhythm, of course, is trying to get that fluency in the reading, so the reading isn't stilted and jerky. We want a nice flow to the reading. And repetition, of course, the experts say sometimes you have to repeat a thing 100 times before a child learns it. So repetition is so important. The more they hear it, the better it will go into long-term storage for their memory. Ask your child how and why questions. So you can try to use the proper verb tenses here too. That's really important. Check the recall of the story the next day. So you can say, when we read Cinderella yesterday, what happened? And then you want them to use the past tense. Don't forget, of course, to praise your child's efforts. Everybody likes to hear how they're doing and wants to feel good about what they're doing. So those are our tips for reading with your child.
Yeah, I think that I make some mistakes as I sometimes like to criticize. So
That's right.
As parents usually make.
Now we're going to choose two key areas where we can create more interaction and perhaps have more fun. So one is going to be the storyline, and the other is going to be things that we can do with our voice. So for the storyline, let's try to predict what will happen if it's a sequel. Sequel means that the author is writing more than one book, maybe 2, 3, 10 books on using those characters or on that topic. And what could happen if it were a sequel? Read slowly enough so that your child can absorb the pictures and the picture thoughts there and get these creative imaginations going in his mind. So be careful not to read too fast. Take time, of course, to laugh or make some humorous comment about what you're reading. Try to enjoy it. Then your child will enjoy it too. Your voice? Well, we can use all kinds of voice qualities when reading to your child. I'll just list the whole variety here, and I'm sure there are even more. The loud, soft, fast, slow, high, low, pause, the gasp, shouting, whine, crying, whimpering, sniffling, belly laugh. And this will add to the excitement of the story and be more interesting for them. Show expression. And that's role modeling. When your child sees that you're using good expression in your reading and emotion, they'll follow through and they'll say, oh, that's how we have to read. So there's happiness and sadness and surprise and fear, shock, giggling, and sympathy. Okay, so that's how we can make it more interesting. So the do's: praise your child's efforts often. Encourage your child to predict the ending of the story, even before you've read it. What do you think's going to happen? If you were the author, how would you have this story end? And there's that creative imagination. Allow your child to read the same book over and over again if they wish. Don't criticize your child's reading choices. Comics are good. Yeah, they're okay. Don't point out so many mistakes. Of course, you have to help them. You have to correct your child, but don't do it so much that the reading becomes a turnoff. Don't always correct the mistake. So there are lots of ways where you can give clues to correct it. You might say, this one rhymes with time, or, well, let's look what came before and what came after. That's called context clues. Mm-hmm. Or you might say, let's sound it out together and use phonetic sounds to break down the sounds in the word. And then let's put it together and see what we've got. And then there are times, of course, where we just have to tell them. Okay, so those are our do's and our don'ts.
Okay, so thanks, Miss Pat, for the coaching about like how to read happily with our children. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And of course, we'll see you next time. Join us again.